I had
Can
a
we do
good
that?
question, more on this social justice political line that I think people have already addressed, but maybe, Tom, you might be able to say more to it. The person here with us says, I once heard Desmond Tutu say, and this is the quote, "The worst thing people in power can do is put the Bible in the hands of those they are oppressing."
Yeah, that's
Do
true.
you agree? Why?
We had this.
The worst thing...
You want to go for Tom?
Yeah.
That does, yeah, I guess, did somebody want the question repeated? Could you repeat it, please?
The worst thing people in power can do is put the Bible in the hands of those they are oppressing.
Yeah, what I hear that quote saying is that if people are reading these justice messages, they're going to rise up and expect to be treated with dignity and respect. And I agree with that. There are other parts of the Bible they might read, and they might be under the influence of some people while they read, so that they focus on other things. They may focus on, eternal salvation or something. So it's not quite as simple as that, but I do agree that there are profound teachings about justice and social equality. So, but you know what? Bible reading cultures throughout history have had access to this and have not risen up in those ways, which is a really interesting situation, isn't it?
I think there's a really great parallel for that I heard described very powerfully once by Liz Walker, who is she's our moderator in Boston. She was the first African-American news broadcaster in Boston. And she was speaking for us once and talking really about this same concept and saying that, during the days of slavery, masters brought preachers in to preach to the slaves, very specifically to preach, slaves, obey your masters, and to keep them down. But maybe because the masters hadn't really read the Bible, they decided that the one book that slaves could have was a Bible. And very frequently that was the only book that there was. And as some slaves learned to read and read that Bible, they read about a guy named Moses, and they read that God, despite that slaves obey your masters piece, God didn't seem to be a great fan of slavery and seemed to go to great lengths to let my people go and to free them. And that having the Bible in their hands gave them another narrative. So and I, as a white person, I'm not the ideal person to talk about all of that, but you do have that story of an oppressed, horribly oppressed people for a very long time, living with both a very difficult passage of Scripture being preached at and pounded on of slaves, obey your masters, and then reading together and saying, but there's this story, and that's the power of, again, the truth versus the fact, the power of the stories in the Bible. The stories we tell ourselves matter. And hearing the story that the lengths that God goes to with plague after plague to let my people go, to free the people again and again, and all of the places, even in the laws, even when you get bogged down in all the laws in Leviticus, the number of times that slaves are protected. In the one commandment, you know what the one commandment out of the 10 commandments that has no parallel in the ancient Near East is the Sabbath commandment. The one that everybody gets a day off. And it is very particular to say, we mean everybody. Not just the masters, but the slaves get the day off, the animals get the day off, and later in Leviticus 25, even the earth gets time and a whole year off. There's passage after passage after passage where slaves are given consideration and freedom and are let go in the year of Jubilee and freed. And it's one of the themes that took root. So I can see that. It's that particular bit of history and story that I hear in Desmond Tutu's comments.